Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking into something pretty fascinating in solar energy. We all think of the sun as this, limitless power source.
Right. Free energy, basically.
Exactly. But what if I told you that even on a totally sunny day, we might actually be losing a fair bit of that energy?
Hmm.
Like, picture a huge solar farm. What happens if just one little cloud shades a small part? Or maybe one section is working so well, it's actually making too much power for the equipment connected to it.
Yeah, that's the surprising part, isn't it? You'd think, okay, more sun, more power, simple as that. But
Right.
actually managing that raw DC power, the stuff straight from the panels, and then converting it effectively to AC for the grid.
That's where the clever stuff happens.
That is absolutely where the real engineering challenge lies. And that's kind of the core problem we're digging into today.
So our mission today is really to explore how companies are getting much, much smarter about squeezing every last drop of energy out of the sun. We're diving into some genuinely innovative ways solar farms are being managed.
And we're using a really interesting source for this.
We are. Our guide is a U.S. patent document. It details something called Solar Farm Interconnection Reconfigurations. We're basically going to unpack the clever engineering and the software that's boosting solar power in ways you probably haven't thought about.
It's a great window into how these things are actually built and operated.
Yeah.
Moving beyond just the panels themselves, this patent really shows how companies are tackling real-world issues to make renewables more solid.
Okay, so who's the brain behind this specific innovation? The company listed on the patent, the applicant and assignee is Inventus Holdings, LLC. They're based down in Juno Beach, Florida.
Right, Inventus Holdings. They're definitely a player in pushing the boundaries, developing ways to make solar more effective, more reliable.
And it really shows that this isn't just about, sticking panels in a field anymore.
No, not at all. It's about making them work together like an intelligent team, a really optimized system. And this patent, US 12,341,348 B2, it was granted pretty recently, June 24, 2025, filed back in August 2023.
So it's pretty cutting edge stuff.
Definitely. It shows the kind of forward thinking that's happening.
So what's the big idea here? What's the main goal of this patent that Inventus is working on?
Well, the big picture is making solar farms operate way more efficiently. And it's all about managing the flow of that direct current, the DC power.
That's the raw electricity, right? Before it gets changed into the AC power we use.
Exactly. Panels make DC, then devices called inverters change it to AC for the grid and for, our homes. The core problem this patent tackles is stopping power loss and boosting the output, even when conditions are changing all the time, like clouds moving or temperatures going up and down.
So getting the absolute maximum power possible.
Right. Turning potential waste into actual usable energy. Every watt counts.
Okay, let's dive into the actual innovations. The first big problem you mentioned is something called clipping. What exactly is that?
Clipping, yeah. So in simple terms, it's when a solar panel, or usually a whole group of panels connected together, produces more DC power than the inverter they're hooked up to can actually handle.
Like it's overloaded.
Precisely. Think of trying to pour a whole gallon of water into a tiny half-gallon cup. The extra just spills over, right? It's wasted.
Okay.
That's kind of what happens with the electricity. If the inverter can't process it all, the excess power is just clipped, broth, lost.
And I guess in standard solar farms, that means you're just leaving energy on the table. Less AC power goes out to the grid.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Significant potential losses.
So what's their solution? This patent talks about dynamic power rerouting. How does that stop clipping?
It's quite smart, actually. They use a central controller. You can think of it as the farm's brain. This controller is constantly watching all the inverters and the groups of panels feeding into them.
Okay, so it's monitoring everything in real time.
Constantly. And if it sees that one inverter, let's call it the first inverter, is starting to clip, meaning it's getting too much DC power.
It's reaching its limit.
Right. The controller immediately checks if there's another inverter somewhere else on the farm that's not at its limit, one that's operating below its capacity.
Ah, so it looks for spare capacity elsewhere. Makes sense.
Exactly. And if it finds a second inverter that does have room, the controller automatically reroutes the DC power from that group of panels that was overloading the first inverter.
And sends it over to the second inverter instead.
Precisely. Sends it to the one with spare capacity. This dynamic rerouting stops that power from being clipped, from being wasted. It gets captured, converted to AC, and adds to the farm's total output.
That's really clever. It's like a smart bypass system for electricity.
You got it. It ensures every possible watt gets used.
But clipping isn't the only challenge, right? Solar farms also have to deal with rapid power fluctuations. Like you
Yeah.
said, those fast-moving clouds. That must cause
Oh,
headaches.
absolutely. That's a huge issue. Moving clouds, maybe even just, sudden changes in weather can make the DC power coming from panel groups jump up and down really quickly. Wildly sometimes.
And that's bad for the inverters.
Yeah, it's not just inefficient, it can actually make the inverters unstable. They work best, they're most efficient, when they get a nice, smooth, steady input of DC power. These rapid swings mess with that.
Okay, so what's the fix for that kind of instability? The patent mentions a power swapping idea.
Right. This is the second key mechanism. It directly tackles that instability problem. So if the controller sees that one inverter is getting this really choppy, rapidly changing DC input,
The roller coaster power we talked about.
exactly, it then checks if another inverter somewhere else is currently getting a much smoother, more slowly changing, stable input from its panels,
Okay, so one's getting chaos, the other's getting calm.
pretty much. And if it finds that situation, one unstable input, one stable input, the system can intelligently swap the connections.
Swap them. So the panels causing the chaos get connected to the inverter that had the stable input and vice versa.
That's the idea. It swaps the outputs of those panel subgroups between the two inverters. The goal is to give both inverters a more stable, more predictable DC input than they had before the swap.
Ah, smoothing things out for everyone.
Exactly. It improves their performance, their efficiency, and the overall system stability. It's kind of like load balancing traffic on a highway, making sure the flow is smooth in all lanes instead of having jams in one and empty space in another.
That's a great way to put it. It sounds like they're building a much more responsive and harmonious system overall. But it's not just about reacting in real time after the farm is built, is it? This patent also talks about planning before construction.
That's a really critical part of it, actually. This isn't just software fixes, it's baked into the design philosophy. The patent describes this fascinating pre-construction planning approach.
What did he do?
Before they even think about putting panels down, Inventus Holdings sets up several meteorological stations, maybe 4 or 5 across the site where the farm will build.
Weather stations.
Yeah, and they leave them there collecting data, specifically on cloud cover, for a pretty long time, like 6 months to a whole year.
Wow, that's a serious upfront investment in data collection. So they're mapping the weather patterns before they build. Does that really pay off?
It seems to, yeah. All that data gets crunched to calculate something called correlation functions for cloud cover between different spots on the site.
Correlation functions, what does that tell them?
Basically, it helps them understand the probability that if one part of the future farm gets shaded by a cloud, another specific part is likely to also be shaded at the same time, or maybe likely to stay sunny. It's like mapping the typical paths and impacts of clouds over that particular piece of land.
Okay, so predicting how shade moves across the site.
Right. And that information helps them decide the best physical places to put different groups of solar panels, and maybe even more importantly, how those groups should be electrically wired up to specific inverters from the start.
Ah, so they're grouping panels and pairing them with inverters strategically based on the weather data.
Exactly. The aim is to minimize the likelihood of large simultaneous power swings later on by designing the layout intelligently. They try to pair sections that are less likely to be affected by the same cloud at the same time.
So it's anticipating the variability from day one, not just reacting to it. That's really thinking ahead.
It really is. That pre-planning provides this foundational stability, which then makes the real-time dynamic rerouting and swapping even more effective.
Okay, we've talked about all this smart decision-making, rerouting, swapping. What's actually doing all this work? The patent mentions the controller. What is that exactly?
For the controller, it's not just, a simple switch box. It's basically a specialized, robust computer system. Think of it as a central nervous system of the whole farm.
So hardware.
Yep, dedicated hardware. The patent mentions things like a CPU, memory, storage, non-volatile memory ways to get data in and out, network connections, the usual computer components, but ruggedized and specialized for this task.
And this hardware runs software, I assume?
Absolutely. It runs highly specialized computer programs, algorithms that do all the things we've talked about. The constant monitoring of power levels, analyzing the stability, making those split-second decisions about whether to reroute or swap power, and then actually controlling the switches to make it happen.
So it's the combination of the smart hardware and the even smarter software orchestrating everything.
Precisely. It's constantly analyzing, deciding, and acting to squeeze out maximum efficiency.
This really is about getting the absolute most out of every single sunbeam, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's bring it back. What does all this tech mean for, for you, the listener? Why should we care about these optimizations?
Well, the combined effect is pretty significant. First, you get much less wasted DC power. That clipping we talked about is minimized.
Okay.
That directly leads to more AC power actually being generated and sent out from the solar farm. So higher overall output.
More electricity from the same number of panels.
Exactly. Which means improved efficiency, better stability of the solar power going into the grid. Essentially, you're getting more bang for your buck from the solar farm investment. It makes better use of the assets, even when the weather isn't perfectly cooperative.
And the patent actually gave a number, didn't it? A pretty dramatic example.
It did. It mentioned one specific scenario, a configuration where using this kind of technology could result in 1.4 megawatts of AC power output,
Okay.
compared to only zero point 0.7 megawatts from the same panels without this intelligent management system in that scenario.
Wow, that's literally double the power output.
Double, yeah. Now, that's likely an illustrated example under specific conditions, but it really highlights the potential scale of improvement. It shows this isn't just tweaking around the edges. It can fundamentally unlock a lot more energy.
So it proves that the sun might be free, but getting the most out of it efficiently, that takes some serious smarts.
Definitely. It shows we can make solar power significantly more productive than we might have thought.
And this matters to all of us, right? Because ultimately, it means potentially more affordable, more reliable, and obviously more sustainable energy. Innovations like these are really vital if we want renewable energy to be a bigger, more dependable part of our power supply.
Absolutely. It's about ensuring we maximize the potential of every single solar installation. It helps solar integrate better with the grid, too, because the output is more stable and predictable.
So wrapping up, this deep dive really shows how incredibly sophisticated the technology behind solar power has become. It's not just simple conversion anymore. It's intelligent management, making it smarter and way more productive.
It really is. And it kind of leaves you wondering, doesn't it? If this kind of smart, real-time optimization and really detailed pre-planning can revolutionize something like a solar farm,
Yeah.
where else could we apply this thinking? Think about other complex systems in our infrastructure or even aspects of our daily lives. Where else could this kind of dynamic resource management, this adaptable, always-on intelligence, unlock efficiencies we haven't even found yet?
That's a great question to ponder. What other systems are just waiting for this kind of smart optimization? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.